Hey everyone. So back by popular demand is the Duckie synthesizer. By popular demand I'm mainly referring to you, Peter. This Duckie has been in many places, many workshops, many platforms, and it's finally reached Patch. So what this is a physically inspired model of a Duckie, which is based on a reed and various physical simplifications of what's going on when you blow through when you squeeze a Duckie. Feel free to have a look inside this power block to see how that works. I've tried to comment it as much as possible. So what's going to happen is when we move this squeeze slider, it's basically the equivalent of squeezing a Duckie in and out, adding and removing air pressure from the reed, resulting in that sound. You'll notice that there's a lot of parameters, maybe too many parameters for a rubber Duckie model, but it's quite fun to play around with. So if we change the sensitivity, for example, we get different more extreme reactions to pitch and pressure. We can change the reed to noise ratio, so we turn it all the way up. We're just going to get the sound of air coming in and out of the Duckie. Okay. Then down here there's a few more pitch related parameters to play with, so here's the general pitch we can change. Okay, and these are pitch modulators. This one's based on the velocity, how fast you're changing the pressure. Pitch modulation based on direction. And what happens when the reed is overblown. Okay, so okay, so lots of fun physical parameters to play with. Now, I've made this patch pretty much ready to go with the sliders and the labels. I'm going to add one important object, which we're going to need in our discovery of subpatches, aka instruments. So for this one we need to go to the section called Other. Is it Other? Yes, Other. And no, it's not in Other, it's in Unclassified, sorry. So let's go to find an object called Instruments panel. Okay. This is a very new feature, so all this is going to be a lot more streamlined in the future, but for the time being I'm just going to put this here. Now the way this works is that you can select your objects which are going to be visible in your front end when you spawn this patch inside another patch, okay? So let's say we say our blocks by default are not visible, and we turn on preview mode. You see that all our blocks have disappeared, okay? So if we drag the selector cable to our slider here, for example, select preview, oops. Okay, we're gonna get only this parameter visible here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and save this. Saved it as Duckie instrument, so I'll just keep that for now. Okay, hit the X, and I'm going to return to my previous patch. So we're back in the sequencer demo patch over here. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to spawn this Duckie patch, and I'm going to hit load, browse patches, and I'm going to look for the letter D. Go, Duckie instrument. Now the important thing here is that we don't hit load, we don't hit import, but we hit import as subpatch, okay? Okay. Now you'll see that we've got this little cog over here that we saw before in our previous instrument editing mode. If I hit it with a trigger, you're going to see the whole patch, okay? Now the cool thing about this is that we can keep on editing our patch so we can make more bits visible, for example. Alright. Let's make these few objects visible. And as soon as we hit this to preview or to go back to our patch, notice that it saves the patch, okay? So any changes we do are going to be saved. Now the fun thing about this is that we can immediately try and hook this up to our sequencer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these sliders. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to set these values using these spacer objects. Okay. So let's take our gate input. I have no idea what's going to happen, but let's just try it. I've never tried this before. Put it into our squeeze parameter. And see what happens. Okay, so that's cool. I'm going to try something now. Because remember our gate is sending a 1 and a 0, right? So let's see what happens if we add a bit of smoothing to this. I'm going to go and spawn something that's called a one pole, okay? There's a very, very simple smoothing filter, very simple low pass filter we can use for control signals. Set the smoothing to, say, 5 Hertz. Plug it in. Okay. So you see, like, what we're ending up with is a smoother signal closer to, like, producing the actual inertia of squeezing the ducky in and out, okay? The higher we make this, the more we get to that aggressive machine-like ducky, and the more low it gets, the more kind of squeezy it gets. You can almost imagine a hand squeezing this ducky in and out. So that's cool. We can copy and paste the spacer. Oops, where did it go? It's over there. And we're going to plug it into here. Set it to a useful value, like 2. And now we've got our smoothing over here as well. Okay. Can even add another label. Which is spawned here for some reason, but that's okay. Let's call this smoothing. Smoothing. Alright. And I want to expose one more parameter, namely the pitch parameter. So you see how easy it is to expose bits. We can move stuff around freely as we want. And we can obviously spend as much time as we want tidying up these things to make interfaces like these ones over here. All of these are subpatches. Okay, so I'm gonna take the velocity parameter because the MIDI note is scaled 0 to 1 to 7. I just want the 0 to 1 value. Put in the pitch. Look up to the air noise ratio. Okay. So that's cool. What if we want to apply some effects to it or have a kind of modular setup like we have in these instruments? Let's go back in the instrument. Let's remove the speaker. And let us get from our Rolodex an extension cable. Okay. Close that. Okay, I'm going to make another label. Call it output. Like that. And I'm going to make this extension visible. Close. There we go. And now I'm going to connect it to our global effects input over here. There we go. So that's pretty cool. Now, the cool thing about this is obviously that we can have visual elements which persist in the top level patch, you know? This is what makes it very different from power blocks. Power blocks are good to have like reusable chunks of code which, let me stop this. Reusable parts of code where you don't need to see the blocks. You know that it works. You're probably not going to have to look at it again unless you're making a very, very specific tweak. However, when you have a subpatch or an instrument, you often want these visual interfaces to be there, whether they're inputs or whether they're visualizations. So speaking of visualizations, we happen to have an interactable model of a rubber ducky, which I'm going to pull in here right now. Okay, just got a duck model. It's very big.